So next is a very important current affair and a very important budget announcement. Okay, this is one of the most important budget 2020 announcement where our finance minister have proposed a new personal income tax regime. What this proposal is that from the financial year 2021 onwards, there will be a simplified new personal income tax regime where in the sense that a new tax slab is being provided. We will see that what is that new tax slab. But what the interesting thing about this personal income tax regime is that it is voluntary. Okay, it is not mandatory. So from the financial year 2021 onwards, there will be two type of personal income taxation system will be there. One is an old regime and a new regime. In the new regime, what is the problem is that many of the tax exemptions or tax deductions which we get, including this section 80C, 80D, etc., will be not there. Okay, so if any income tax assessee, okay, if he decides to move to new personal income tax regime, then nearly 70 tax exemptions and deductions will be, he have to waive it. Okay, so if he is ready to move on to new tax regime without many tax exemptions, okay, if he don't want tax exemptions and tax deductions, he will get a much more simplified tax regime where the tax rate will be lower. Okay, so you have the option either to continue with the old personal income tax regime or to move on to the new personal income tax regime. Okay, so and this was announced in the budget 2020. So it says that, what was the important announcement is that the budget proposal says that around 70 of the existing tax exemptions and deductions, there are around total more than 100 tax exemptions and tax deductions are there. But out of 100, more than 100, currently nearly 70 of the existing tax deductions and tax exemptions will be removed. Okay, so in the new personal income tax regime, currently existing 70 tax deductions and tax exemptions will be removed, and the remaining exemptions and deductions will be reviewed and rationalized in the coming year. So this was the budget announcement made by the finance minister. And one interesting thing I told you that in this new tax regime, it is not mandatory, it is optional. You have an option either to continue with the old regime and avail the tax deduction and tax exemption, or you can shift to new tax regime so that you have to forgive the currently available tax deductions and tax exemptions. Okay, so from financial year 2021 onwards, there will be two systems, an old regime and a new regime for personal tax. Okay, so in the old regime, there will be tax deduction and exemption, but in the new regime, there will not be. You have to forgive these tax deduction and tax exemption. Now we will see that what is the difference between the old personal income tax regime and the new income tax regime. Okay, so in the old regime, okay, if you're in the old, this is old rate, this is old income tax rate, this is the new income tax rate. Okay, if your income is up to 2.5 lakh in both the regime, you need not to pay tax. But if your income is up to 5 lakh, you have to pay a tax of 5%, but with a condition. Okay, if your taxable income is up to 5 lakh, then a tax rebate will be given, so if your taxable income, even though it is 5%, but if your income is up to 5 lakh, if your taxable income is up to 5 lakh, you need not to pay any tax because the government will give tax rebate. But even though in the slab, this 5% is there. Why means, if any person is having an income of above 5 lakh, if your income is 6 lakh, or if your taxable income is 6 lakh or 7 lakh or 8 lakh or 10 lakh or 20 lakh or above that, this slab will be there. But if anyone's this income is up to, taxable income is up to 5 lakh, this 5% waiver they will get, because the government will, tax rebate will be provided to them. So currently in the personal income tax regime, okay, this was also an earlier budget announcement regarding this 5% tax can be foregone if your taxable income is up to 5 lakh. Okay, so now this, why this 5% is important is that this 5% is applicable to those whose taxable income is above 5 lakh. Now, interestingly, in the earlier regime, if your income is between 5 lakh to 10 lakh, between 5 lakh to 10 lakh, you have to pay an income tax of 20%. But in the new regime, if between 5 to 7.5 lakh, between 5 to 7 lakh, you have to pay only 10% tax. Between 7.5 to 10 lakh, you have to pay only 15%. Okay, so there is a huge reduction in the tax in the new tax regime. Between if your income is between 5 to 10 lakh, you will benefit. But the problem is that in the new tax regime, you have to forego tax deductions and tax exemptions. Around 70 tax deductions and tax exemptions you will not get it. Now, in the earlier regime, if your income is about 10 lakh, in the old regime, if your income is about 10 lakh, then there will be personal income tax of 30% you have to pay. But keep this in mind, there is also cess and surcharges there. So that I am not discussing, because cess and surcharge is in the old regime and the new regime is the same. So only the tax slab is different. So again in the old tax regime, if your income is above 10 lakh, you have to pay 30% tax. But in the new regime, if your income is between 10 to 12.5 lakh, then in this slab, you have to pay up to 10 lakh, this is the slab. But between 10 to 12.5 lakh, the slab is 20%. Between 12.5 lakh to 15 lakh, it is 25%. Above 15 lakh, it is 30%. So above 50 lakh, both in the old tax regime and in the new tax regime, it is 30%. Okay, so you can see a very progressive tax regime. It's a progressive taxation in the case of, so in that way it is a very simple. This new personal income tax regime is very simple, and it is avoiding confusion, because there is no need for, means you will not get any tax deduction or tax exemption. Now, what is the basic aim of this new tax regime is that without any person's assistance, you can directly pay your personal income tax. Okay, so because it is very straight, okay, you don't require anyone's help for you to pay personal income tax. Okay, now we'll try to solve this question. With reference to India's decision to introduce new and simplified personal income tax regime proposed in the budget 2020, which of the following statement is correct? More than 100 of the existing exemption and deduction to be removed in the new simplified regime? No. Even though we have more than 100 in the old regime, there are more than 100 tax exemption and deductions are there. Currently, only around 70 of the tax deductions, and exemptions are removed in the new tax regime, not 100. So first statement is wrong. Regarding the second statement, the new tax regime to be optional. An individual may continue to pay tax as per the old regime and avail deduction and exemption. Yes, the new tax regime is to be optional. So second statement is correct. First statement is wrong. So your answer is B, 2 only.